Right now in my career, I'm not saying will I win a six, it's when will I win a sixth.
Paul Mcbeth stands on the tee of the first hole of a playoff for the Disc Golf World Championship. It's an island hole, and someone is going to go out of bounds. He's been dragged to the limit from an underdog, now faces only two outcomes: glory or heartbreak. Let's run it back. Paul Mcbeth stands on the tee of the first hole of a playoff for the Disc Golf World Championship. It's an island hole, and someone is going to go out of bounds. He's been dragged to the limit from an underdog and now faces only two outcomes: glory or heartbreak. And in the last 2 years, we've got to witness both. Screw whatever you've been told, this week in Emporia was special. The disc golf world seems to be losing their minds lately about the trophy and the course and 1,000 other things, but I want to cut through all of that. I just want to talk disc golf and the history that was written during the 2022 Disc Golf World Championships. We've got a lot to cover, so let's dive into it. I'm Mason with Heiser Flight, and thank you for being here. I'd love to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and if you could help with that, that would mean a ton. So I said this, word for word, in my preview video for Worlds. I said that either we're believing Paul Mcbeth has lost his killer instinct, or there is a sleeping giant heading into Worlds. And while in that video I did predict Paul to win, gotta pat myself on the back a little bit, hindsight is 2020. I wasn't sure if Paul would fall short again like he did at the European Open or at Worlds in 2021. He has not had that killer instinct lately. He's put up course records in several events this year, and we've seen flashes of greatness, but he's not been able to convert it into wins, and I'm not the only one who was doubting him. Ricky Wysocki was pegged as the favorite this year for Worlds. There's so many incredibly talented players making waves every week, and the old guard of the game is slowly receding into the background. How could Paul possibly do it again? This is not the same game that was played 10 years ago. The competition is not the same. The courses are not the same. We've entered a new era of our sport filled with Aaron Gossages, and it's not crazy to believe that a veteran like Mcbeth would start taking steps back, especially after the tough season he's had. But let's not kid ourselves. Like Paul Mcbeth has done for nearly a decade, this man arrives at Worlds ready to play disc golf and solidify his legacy. He has that 10th gear, that will to win, that clutch gene that only the greatest of the great possess. And his performance was nothing less than vintage Paul Mcbeth, willing unmakeable putts into existence and applying unrelenting pressure to whoever holds the lead. He not only took home a 6th world title, but strengthened his case as the greatest to ever play the game, while battling injury and while going toe-to-toe with a dangerous Aaron Gossage. That is special. And look, I'm not even the biggest Paul Mcbeth fan. I feel about him the same way I feel about Tom Brady. But as someone who talks about the game, I have to acknowledge Paul Mcbeth's legacy and how it is undeniable. And I'm just honored that I get to watch it unfold, that I got to watch disc golf history rewritten this week in Emporia. You may not like him, but Paul Mcbeth will not be around forever, and so I'm thankful that I get to witness this world's dominance while it lasts. We'll get back to Paul in just a moment, but the other story that can't go without mention is of course that of the Colorado kid, Aaron Gossage. And while Aaron's event ultimately ended with a second place finish, even to do that is to be associated with the elite. This was not your 3-round DGPT event. This was Worlds. 5 rounds with the best of the best, all playing full throttle, and Aaron Gossage did not back down. Here's your runner-up finishes from the last 10 Disc Golf World Championships. All legends. And here's Aaron Gossage. He should be incredibly proud of what he accomplished this week. So let's look at this event chronologically. There was some interesting things that stand out. The first was how Paul Mcbeth's tournament actually started. He looked honestly kind of bad right out of the gate, struggling with his putt and with getting off the tee, while on the same card, Chris Dickerson was catching fire. Through 6 holes, Chris was 6 under while Paul was even, and while it's way too soon to call, I did start to get a little worried. Maybe he was off. But you know who wasn't worried? Paul Mcbeth. He went on to birdie 9 out of the next 12 holes, and was on the chase card by the end of the day. And he just happened to end the tournament 13 strokes ahead of Chris. It takes a mental fortitude I will never understand to stay upright despite such a rough first few holes. During the second and third round, we saw, as expected with these courses, the big throwers rise through the ranks. As mentioned in my preview video, distance specialists that can stay away from OB and gain strokes tee to green will excel in Emporia. Guys like Tristan Tanner and Anthony Barella and, of course, Aaron Gossage fit this mold perfectly. One thing that was talked about a lot this weekend was the concept of one-angle disc golf, and Gossage played this to perfection, throwing incredibly powerful shots either backhand or forehand on pure hyzer angles with overstable discs. It's not the flashiest disc golf in the world, but it is effective nonetheless on courses like these. Aaron shot 10 down the first 3 rounds of the tournament, and nothing that he did left you thinking that he couldn't do it again the next round, and he did. It was consistent, powerful, and effective hyzer golf. Every player has some sort of semblance of their hometown in the way that they play. Maybe in the offseason I'll make a video detailing this concept, but I'll say this. Aaron Gossage plays Colorado disc golf, and he plays it well. On the first few holes at Emporia Country Club, Aaron throws essentially the same shot, the same power forehand with the same disc off of every tee. It makes me think of 2 other guys that can both throw deadly forehands consistently on steep hyzer angles. That would be Chandler Kramer and Gavin Babcock, both of whom finished in the top 20, which is not a surprise when you look at how that skill set lines up with these courses. Round 3 is where I started to really take Gossage seriously. Paul Mcbeth started off the round white hot, birdieing the first 6 holes in a row and doing that Paul Mcbeth thing where he seems like he's feeding off of the mistakes on the card. But Aaron Gossage did not back down. In fact, he met Mcbeth with a birdie of his own, hole after hole after hole. This new overhead distance view thing that Jomez added to their coverage is super cool, and it led to some interesting insights. In the third round, they displayed this graphic 6 times, if I counted correctly, and in 4 out of those 6 times, Aaron Gossage had outdriven the card while throwing controlled, pure hyzers on a card filled with other giant throwers. His distance is elite. Round 4 is where I imagined Paul Mcbeth or Ricky Wysocki would put up a scorching hot round, and someone unfamiliar with the pressure like Aaron Gossage would start to slip. But it was really the opposite. In round 4, Gossage continued to execute his game plan shot after shot, while for Paul, round 4 was a fight. I'm not trying to give Mcbeth more credit than he deserves, but I think he was in more pain with that left leg than he was giving on. To be switching putting stances just to alleviate some pressure was a telltale sign of this, and I think that round 4 might have been his toughest round of the tournament. So we all know how the final round went. Aaron Gossage started off with a 3-stroke lead and the weight of the world on his shoulders. The gallery was packed out and every camera crew was there and every shot had drastic consequences. I could not imagine that pressure. Also, the wind was really starting to become a factor in the final round, and this played heavily into Mcbeth's veteran savvy. And by hole 6, Paul Mcbeth had already tied it up. This was due to some missed putts from Aaron, and while those putts were not great, I think they actually tended closer to his average. Gossage is currently 238th on the Pro Tour in Circle 1X putting. And I don't say that to disparage him, but to show how truly dangerous he is when the putt is on. And the final round, I think, was much closer to his average. You could tell when those first few putts missed low that Mcbeth was smelling blood in the water. But as he's done all tournament, Aaron Gossage did not back down. He showed incredible mental maturity, not only in his interviews this week, but how he approached his mistakes. Even in the final round, and I think this mental fortitude will be the reason that we see Gossage rising through the ranks again soon. Mcbeth and Gossage traded blows all the way down the line. And I won't give a full recap of the final round, but I think that what occurred on hole 17 was what shook the foundation of the disc golf world. It gave me goosebumps. I know how the playoff ended was slightly anticlimactic. Some people wanted to see Paul Mcbeth take it instead of having it given. Well, hole 17 is where Paul Mcbeth took it. And not just the putt, but Paul's second throw on 17 was, I think, the most underrated shot of the tournament. For his tournament life, Paul weaved a driver through a dangerously low ceiling with just enough height to miss the trees, but enough distance to give himself a putt. The difficulty of that shot is incomprehensible. And I said in my previous video that I think Mcbeth's ability to weave through low ceilings will make a difference in an overgrown Emporia, and on this shot it definitely did. And of course that putt on 17 was ice cold. In a tournament where Mcbeth's putt was his biggest weakness, when it's time to win the tournament, he goes and sinks a 70-footer, completely willing it into existence. When I look back on the 2022 World Championships and the moments that defined our sport this year, this will be at the top of my list.
He did it. This man is unbelievable.
Really, that whole final round deserves another rewatch or 10. While Worlds might never top what occurred in 2021, this year, at least in my opinion, expectations were exceeded in terms of an exciting finish. It was one for the history books. And while I think that Paul Mcbeth and Aaron Gossage are the focal points of this tournament, there's 3 additional players that deserve recognition. They all finished in 3rd place, just 4 strokes off of your leaders. First is Tristan Tanner. He defied logic with his run from the B pool. He rectified what was a rocky season and once again showed the disc golf world the talent he possesses. I have never seen anyone in my life throw a 400-foot sidearm and look so effortless doing so. Chris Clemens is quietly putting together the best season of his entire career, and his run at Worlds this year was one of consistency. His trajectory is going nowhere but up. And of course, Matt Oram redefining the longevity of a disc golf career. He's seen eras of our sport come and go, and he has remained at the top of this game, and is even improving on top of that. And really, I don't think that Emporia exactly fits Mattio's strong suits, yet he was still in contention. I think we'll see another deep run from Oram by the end of the season. And also a quick shout out to Nate Sexton for another World's Top 10 finish. Well, we made it. Worlds is over, and we can stop and we can take a breath and appreciate the greatness that was on display that we were able to witness this week. But don't pause for too long, because some of my favorite events of the year are right around the corner in the Green Mountain Championship and the MVP Open. I will see you then. As always, thank you so much for your time. Until the next one.